Hello everybody, this is Bill Warner. This is the week 8 presentation on commercialization. This is going to be all about those things that you're going to have to focus on in order to be successful in running your business. Let's get right on into it. So here we are actually in step 6, the final step in this 6 steps to success process. We've just finished preparation, which was the successful launch of the business. You have started. You are officially a startup. How about that? So now we're going to focus on sales and the other operational aspects of your business that need your attention and your constant attention day after day. So now you're running a company. You're running the business. You're in charge. And this is all about operational processes for all the disciplines of your business. You're going to be looking at the rolled up results of all of the disciplines from marketing through sales to customer support on the back end of things. It's all cross-organizational in scope. Now you may have a very small organization and you may be doing more than just the job of the CEO, but the disciplines are cross-organizational. That is, one feeds another, and you're going to have to make sure that your entire engine is operating. The carburetor is right, it's tuned right, the manifold is working right, you're engaging the clutch in your automatic transmission right, the fan belt is working, and on and on and on, so that the whole engine is running. For you, it's marketing, sales, administration, and many other things I'll take you through. It's metrics driven with management dashboards. That's simply meaning reports, online, nothing written. It's all they're produced by the operations of your business. Each of the disciplines reports into an overall dashboard for helping you run the business and understand where it's going. And it's all driven by expert project managers throughout your organizations. And again, that may be just you and 2 other people, but you're all going to manage the various disciplines of the business. So your commercialization focus really falls in these 7 areas. These are the operational areas of your business: marketing, sales, customer support once you have achieved the sale and it's installed. The supply chain has to be humming along to make sure that you don't lose any customers along the way. Your manufacturing operations are producing products that are cost effective for you. Financial operations in terms of probably mainly cash flow management, that's what you're going to be paying attention to a lot. And all the administration operations of your company are rocking and rolling. Let's go through each of these. Let's start with marketing operations. This is where you're going to first get engaged with a possible customer. And you're going to measure various kinds of metrics to make sure that you have an efficient process by which you acquire qualified leads. So you're going to look at such things as new prospect acquisition rate. How many new prospects are you getting per week, per month, etc. The click-through rate to your website or your landing page. The conversion rate of these prospects to qualified leads. These steps we took you through in the various marketing presentations that you had in previous weeks. Another thing you look at then is the expense per qualified lead. You've got to make sure that you're not spending so much money that you're not going to be profitable at the end of the day when you add in all of the other expenses that are incurred in your business. So your expense per qualified lead is an important metric you probably should be following. And then as you look at these metrics, you're constantly going to be asking your team to figure out ways to improve it, to be much more efficient at it, driving down the cost of qualified leads, improving the click-through rates and conversion rates, the various enhancements you make to your marketing process. What logically follows then is sales operations following marketing operations. You want to look at the sales cycle time. You've got a step-by-step process you're going through to close a sale. You're going to look at how long it takes to go through each step and look for process improvements. So you're going to convert that to process step achievement rates. Of course, at the end, you're going to have closure of the sale, and what rate do you close? What percent of all the qualified leads close as a sale for your product or service? And then add up all the expense incurred to close a sale. That's mainly the time of the salesperson and whatever other resources are spent in that process. You then will add this expense per closed sale with the expense per qualified lead. You add those two together and you get the overall expense to close the sale. In other words, the cost of customer acquisition. This is something we want to pay a lot of attention to and find ways to improve over time, because that's going to determine, in effect, your gross profit on the sale of a product. Whatever money's left has got to pay your operating expenses. If you don't have any, you're going to be in trouble. Then overall sales achievement versus sales objectives. You had something in mind as to, on a month-by-month basis, what your revenue was going to be. How many deals were you going to close? Well, how did you do? Did you overachieve, underachieve? If so, why? And understand the problems underlying it and modify your sales approach. And then also come up with an improvement plan to improve upon the efficiency of the sales process itself that you're going through. This is something you're going to pay a lot of attention to through the life of your business. So get used to it and do well at it. I find that many new entrepreneurs really miss out on understanding what it takes to support a customer and what operational implications there are to supporting them. If your product or service requires customization, you should know what the expense of it is per sale, per customer. If you have installation expense, that is, you're participating in the installation process, which I hope you're not, but if you are, what's the expense for that per sale? That's something you want to track and improve. Take it to zero if you can. Maintenance and upgrades. Now if you have software, you have bugs to fix and upgrades to provide new functionality. Same could be true for hardware products. But you ought to know what the maintenance and upgrade expense is as a percentage of revenue. And you want to keep that down into a low single-digit percent of revenue. Else you're going to be hurting your profitability badly. Your warranty costs, if you're providing a warranty, what percent of revenue is it? And you want to keep that cost to a minimum. You really got to carefully lay out what your warranty commitments are, and don't be too overly generous about it, because it can cost you a lot of money. Carefully manage this and keep the percent of revenue at a minimum. If you have products that can be returned, what's your return rate, percentage of revenue, as measured as a percentage of revenue? You want to take that as close to zero as you can, of course. So you got to discover, why are these being returned? Where in the manufacturing process did a failure occur? Go back and fix it. Thing that you don't want a lot of, but you may get, are customer calls, emailing you, chatting with you online, or calling you up on the telephone. You should be measuring such things as response time to resolution of a problem. Percentage of them handled online without any human intervention. You got no call and the problem was resolved, or the question was answered in most cases. So what's the expense of calls as a percent of revenue? All of these things add up to customer support costs. And if you're getting up there to 10-15% of your revenue spent on this stuff, you really got to work hard to find ways to automate much of this, or eliminate the need for it. And then you want to make sure your customers are happy. Doing customer satisfaction surveys annually is kind of a minimum, but you ought to have an ongoing relationship with your customers where you're getting feedback pretty frequently, particularly in the first year of operation. Your supply chain is going to require your attention as well, particularly if you have a product that you're delivering through direct channels. So the product inventory turn is a very, very important measurement of manufacturing. If you can turn the inventory over multiple, and increasingly more multiple per year or per month, or whatever period of time you want to measure, you're becoming more and more efficient. Your costs will come down. Inventory expense, that is the amount of inventory you're keeping on hand as a percentage of revenue, is something you're going to carefully manage. Think about it. Every product you put on the shelf is money out of your checkbook that's sitting there doing nothing. It's holding up cash for you to invest in other things. So you want to get this inventory at an optimal level so that you can deliver on your commitments, but not much more than that. The cost per item versus the plan that you had in place is something you ought to be measuring to drive costs down. You're going to be a cost manager if you're building a product, driving costs down month after month after month. On-time delivery is a big one. Customer expectations have been set. You better be able to follow through, or better, when you said you would deliver it. Make sure you have the process and you measure on-time delivery and find out why it's not being delivered on time in every single case that comes up. Service provider expense and schedule targets have to be met, so you should measure deviation from your schedule targets. An improvement plan, like all these other processes, to reduce all the supplier costs that go into your supply chain. This is a very important aspect of your business, and you cannot let it get out of hand with escalating costs and wasted money in inventory. Manufacturing operations, if you are manufacturing something and you're doing it yourself, but even if you have an outsourced manufacturer, you want to know this kind of stuff about how they're doing. So the manufacturing cost of your product as a percentage of revenue, in other words, translates into your cost of goods sold, is something you really want to manage carefully and reduce on an ongoing basis to take advantage of volume, the increase in volume. It ought to be able to drive costs down as you make more and more product. Quality improvements, that is fewer failures, hopefully no failures. Sometimes things happen, but you want to have a quality improvement plan for all of your manufacturing operations on an ongoing basis, and have your team proud of what they've achieved and reward them handsomely for achieving quality improvement results. In manufacturing, you've got parts, components, supplies, transportation needs, warehousing requirements, packaging, and the list goes on. So you want to know what the cost as a percentage of revenue is of all of this stuff. It's actually part of your supply chain, but we're focused on the manufacturing part of your supply chain. The inventory turn of parts and the inventory turn of your finished goods as well, as we mentioned earlier. And having an improvement plan to reduce these overall absolute costs that exist in the manufacturing operations. This is pretty complex stuff. So finally, you want to be able to shipping volume consistently with a per unit cost that you can predict and in a unit of time. So you got cost and time of delivery all woven together, which drives shipping volume. So you got to have a handle on manufacturing operations like everything else. So I call them the green eye shades guys, the financial operations of your business, but they're going to help you a lot. You're going to understand your revenue versus what you planned, and if you get deviations, you're going to go discover why. Gross profit versus plan. Inventory expense, and is it up, is it down, is it according to plan? Expense as a percent of revenue, and you want to monitor the various forms of expense, so you get into the details of the deviations that are occurring. The aging of receivables, which you don't want it to age because you want to be paid on time, hopefully ahead of time, but you should at least expect being paid on time. You're going to pay people on time as well. You're going to abide by the limits of the contracts you have and honor them accordingly, but you're going to manage it closely. Don't get ahead of yourself, paying out way ahead of time. You don't have to do that. And your people you buy things from actually don't expect that from you. Net profit versus plan, cash flow versus plan are all things you've got to look at to make sure that you've got money still in the bank and you can pay your bills and perhaps invest in new products if you've got enough of it. At the end of the year, of course, your financial operations will end with some sort of audit or review. Some businesses don't need formal audits, but you ought to do a review to make sure the books are closed properly. Of course, you're going to have the financial reports come out of that are the basis for you filling out your tax return. Financial operations are something you got to pay attention to, so get educated on the subject because you're going to want to know this stuff. Your administrative operations have to be in order as well, from a legal and regulatory point of view especially. But starting perhaps on the most important subject, you as the owner of this business are the leading edge of the culture of your business. The culture of your business comes from you. And what you want your brand to mean and what you want your company to mean, both with all employees as well as the outside world, has to be communicated frequently to all of your employees, making sure that they know what you're all about and what the vision and mission of your business is, and they can repeat it back to you and they repeat it to others, hopefully. You should be doing employee satisfaction surveys annually at a minimum, but you could be doing satisfaction surveys every day of your working life, simply by walking around and talking to people, communicating not only the culture, but finding out how they are, how they're doing, what they need. So you show you care. So employee satisfaction is a daily event, but you measure it at some frequency, maybe annually. Your hiring needs are planned for, and you need to know, are you making your plan? You got key individuals you want to bring into the company. It's important you get them on time. You have skills shortages, make sure that they're identified and you get them resolved quickly. And you and the human resources part of your business handle that. You make sure that your company policies are current and well communicated to all employees. The policies that have to do with regulatory compliance, you make sure are delivered to the regulatory agencies that watch you and make sure that they're approved. You have board meetings and formal governance meetings, the documents for which have to be prepared for each meeting and kept on file. If you were ever audited by the IRS, for example, they're going to want to see those kinds of things to show that you're a real company. So all of these administrative details are probably carried out by your human resources person, either an employee in your company or a contracted service. And perhaps the financial part of this is done by an employee or someone you've contracted with as well. So the next steps are for in class and your mentoring session are to review your preparation template that you completed from last week, discuss your progress for the completion of your evaluation template. It's almost due. It's week 9's coming up quick here. And you update and present your elevator pitch in class. So for the next session, you complete the commercialization template for this week, provide it to your mentor for review and comments, discuss it in your next mentoring session, and of course update your elevator pitch as well. Okay, that's the end of this module. Now if you have questions, go ahead and contact your instructor mentor, and your choices for doing that are: you can email your instructor at innovationcenter@faytech.edu. You can make a call at 910-678-8496. And you can schedule a meeting with your mentor in the virtual office on Blackboard. You can also post a question on Question for My Mentor discussion forum and have others participating in the answer to the question. It's a good way of sharing information amongst participants. But please note that you should not post a question that is divulging confidential information that would open up that confidential information to others to read. So be forewarned there. So that's it. Get your homework done. Look forward to talking to you in the next class.